After an epic collapse, the Tigers' 6-game win streak is over. What happened and how do they pick up the pieces? We're talking about it. Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube, so please subscribe. LSU loses to Texas A&M 38-23 in a game that you had to watch from beginning to end to really understand just how that all transpired. If you're an LSU fan, you're going to wake up on Sunday wondering how in the world that game got away. And of course, if you're a Texas A&M fan, you're in the driver's seat in the SEC right now. A couple of really tough road conference games ahead for A&M with South Carolina, Auburn, and a home game against Texas. And for LSU, an open date before they play Alabama, at Florida, home against Vanderbilt, home against Oklahoma. I want to delve into LSU's path forward coming up in just a little bit. But, you know, all week, if you were here with us, my point about this game was singular. I said on Sunday, you'll wake up and look at one statistic. When you wake up Sunday, I want you to look at one statistic in the box score, and that'll tell you the game. You remember what it was? It was A&M's rushing offense. And lo and behold, Texas A&M ran 49 times for 242 yards and 5 touchdowns. It is no surprise that LSU lost 38-23 when you see that statistic. Similarly, LSU ran 23 times for 24 yards. A&M ran the ball. LSU could not. They won the line of scrimmage, and that's why they won the football game. But it's not that simple because it's not like that was the story throughout. LSU had 2 different 10-point leads in this ballgame. LSU led 10-0 in the first quarter. They led 17-7 at the 8-minute mark of the third quarter. Midway through the third quarter, you led by double digits and felt like you were in complete and utter command of this football game. And if you had gone to bed at that point and woke up and saw this final score, you'd be scratching your head going, what happened? Well, 2 things primarily happened. Garrett Nussmeier reverted to the form that a lot of us feared at the beginning of the season that we hadn't really seen to this point. He threw 3 interceptions in the second half, 3 bad interceptions at that. Not that there's ever a good one, but it's different when end of the half you heave a ball up, it's picked, or you throw a 50-50 ball and a defender makes a great play and you tip your cap. These were bad interceptions. Garrett Nussmeier being confused by coverage, making bad decisions with the football, throwing the ball into harm's way, and really put LSU in a tough spot. And the other was Marcel Reed. And that, for me, is going to be one that's really, really hard to stomach because Marcel Reed had played plenty for Texas A&M this year, and you had seen an offense just a week ago with Arkansas, with a mobile quarterback that wanted to run zone read, which is exactly what they did. So there's 2 parts of this. It's LSU blowing opportunities to build a bigger lead early and then having no answer whatsoever for the counterpunch that Texas A&M threw in the second half. I'll run through some of those opportunities, how this game transpired. A&M won the toss and deferred because you should always defer when you win the toss. LSU got the ball, went 3 and out. And you really wanted to see the defense come up with a stop, and they got it. They forced a punt. LSU got the ball back, and they embarked on a wonderful drive. LSU took over at their own 8-yard line, which was certainly not a great spot to be in, but LSU would put together an 11-play, 87-yard drive that netted 3 points. And this comes into the whole point about blown opportunities. You ended up with a goal-to-go situation at the Texas A&M 7-yard line. I don't like the fact that Caden Durham wasn't in the game. It was Josh Williams. Josh Williams had a negative 1-yard loss. He caught a pass for 2 yards on 3rd and 6. You targeted Trey Green. It was incomplete. You kicked a 23-yard field goal. Golden opportunity to get up 7-0. Instead, you settle for 3. But defense comes up with a huge play. Sage Ryan on 3rd and 10 forces a fumble on what would have been a conversion. You get the ball at their 21. A huge 3rd and 2 reception by Trey'Dez Green for 11 yards to put you down to 2. Mason Taylor on 1st down. Boom, corner of the end zone. Back left corner of the end zone. Beautiful catch, beautiful throw. You're up 10-0 and you're feeling really good. Now, A&M answered with a touchdown drive. They converted a 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 7. So you go into the second quarter in a 10-7 ball game, and this is another missed opportunity for LSU. You put together another long drive in this situation. You go down the field. It's a 10-play, 49-yard drive. You end up converting on 3rd and 15 with a 32-yarder to Kyron Lacey, 3rd and 7, 21-yarder to Kyron Lacey. You end up having to settle after a false start by Will Campbell. You couldn't overcome it. You settle for a 48-yard field goal attempt. The execution was poor, and that was something that we saw routinely. The snap, the hold was pretty poor tonight. You had 2 bad holds. You had a snap that the holder wasn't ready for, hit him on the helmet in the second half. And again, right there, the opportunity to score a touchdown on that second drive, 4 points you left on the field. You missed the field goal. That's another 3 point. That's 7 points right there that you've already left out there. And A&M, thankfully, your defense was fantastic. And you got off the field again. And then Aaron Anderson struck with a 76-yarder. And by the way, that was made possible because on 3rd and 13, they had a defensive face mask. Also the play where Garrett Dellinger got hurt. But Aaron Anderson hits the 76-yarder. Great play. You're up 17-7. You're feeling great about this right now. And the only thing you don't want to have happen is Texas A&M with the opportunity to go back-to-back at the end of the first half, start of the second half. Your defense gets another stop. And you even had an opportunity at points. Chris Hilton, 15 yards. Kyron Lacey, 30 yards. You got 1st and 10 at their 32. You can't make any hay. And you end up attempting a 49-yard field goal, and it's no good. You had opportunities. You had opportunities in that first half to grow the lead. You didn't do it. You go to half, 17-7. You come out in the second half. They get the ball. You force a quick punt. Zy Alexander gets a sack. Everything's going great. Connor Wegman was absolutely miserable. We talked about it all week. Connor Wegman is not a good quarterback. He's a good arm talent. He's a bad quarterback at this point in his career. And at half, Texas A&M had 147 yards of offense, and you were winning 17-7. Connor Wegman was 5 of 14 for 49 yards in that first half. If they had decided to play Connor Wegman the entire game, you win that game going away. You romp them. But they didn't play Connor Wegman the entire game. And ultimately, that's when the game changed. And that's what we'll talk about here in just a quick second as we continue Locked on LSU, your team every day. Let me tell you about Z-Biotics. A lot of you might have been having a good time on Saturday before, obviously, the second half of that football game. But if you're going to drink alcohol, make sure that you try Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics is pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. So here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember, make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and feel your best tomorrow. Hey, look, here's step 1. Drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2 is drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep. And then step 3, you can enjoy the day tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. We got an offer for you. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege. Learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Tigers have this week off, of course, but they'll be back at home 2 weeks from, a week from this coming Saturday against Alabama. And if you want to be there, Game Time can help make it happen. I love Game Time. It is my favorite ticketing app. If you want to be at LSU in Alabama, check it out right now over at Game Time. I love the Game Time picks. It's curation, which makes it easier to save money on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it may be that you are wanting to be in that number for. And I love the all-in pricing as well. We've all had that experience where we go to buy tickets on the ticketing app, and then by the time you get to check out, it ain't the same price you thought you were paying. Well, with all-in pricing, you turn that feature on. When you toggle, it'll show you the total up front, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. And, of course, the lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Well, it went very badly for LSU from the midway point of the third quarter for the remainder of the game. By now, you know. Marcel Reed entered the game at quarterback for Connor Wegman, and he was 5 for 5. 4 touchdowns, 4 consecutive touchdown drives, and a field goal. They had no answer whatsoever for Marcel Reed when he went into the game. And the thing that's massively disappointing is Marcel Reed started 3 games while Connor Wegman was injured. It's not like a total unknown went into the game and completely changed things. LSU fans will remember 2001 SEC championship game against Tennessee. Rohan Davey gets hurt. Matt Mauck goes in. Matt Mauck was a completely different quarterback stylistically than Rohan. Tennessee wasn't ready for it, for Mauck's ability to run. Completely threw him off. And while Reed is very different stylistically from Connor Wegman, Reed's played. And a week ago, you faced the combo of Taylon Green, Jaquindon Jackson at Arkansas, so you had just prepared for a running quarterback. By the way, in 2 weeks when Alabama comes to Baton Rouge, you better be ready for a running quarterback because it's Jalen Milroe's legs that beat you last year, not his arm. So that is so disappointing that it happened the way that it did, where Marcel Reed came into the game and the game completely changed. I'll tip my cap to Mike Elko because he made the right decision. He made the right decision to make that change because if he had stuck with Connor Wegman for the remainder of the game, LSU wins and wins handily. By the way, to illustrate how bad Wegman was, Marcel Reed threw 2 passes. 2 passes all night. He was 2 for 2 for 70 yards, which was more yardage than Connor Wegman threw for. 6 of 18 for 64. Also, Marcel Reed, 9 carries for 62 yards. Le'Veon Moss ran for 83 yards. Amani Daniels ran for 91 yards. In total, Texas A&M, 49 rushes for 242. We said it all week. Look at Texas A&M's rushing total, and that was going to tell you the story. And really, that was the game because LSU had no answer whatsoever for Marcel Reed, his ability to run the football. But it wasn't just that they put Reed in. It's what happened preceding Reed entering the game that changed everything. LSU is up 17-7. And you could talk about changes, halftime adjustments for Texas A&M, but they were not effective early. A&M got the ball to start the second half. Zy Alexander gets a sack to end that drive. They punt. LSU gets the ball, ends up punting. A&M gets the ball back for their second possession. JVR Suggs, sack. They end up with a 3rd and 5. Incomplete. They go 3 and out and punt. So you have stopped them twice now where they can look completely impotent offensively. You get the ball, and on 3rd and 2, Garrett Nussmeier rolling to his left, throws the ball back over the middle of the field, and it's intercepted. They would return it to the LSU 8. One play later, Marcel Reed, who had just entered the game on his first play, runs it into the end zone for a touchdown at 17-14, and at that point, the game changed completely. You know, we could talk about Nuss's throw, which was a terrible decision. The truth is with Nuss also is you're going to take the good with the bad. The whole gunslinger mentality put it to you this way. I'll give you a specific example. 4th and 5 against Ole Miss. Less than a minute to play. 5 yards of the game's over. Garrett Nussmeier didn't find the 5-yard completion. He threw the ball into the end zone to Aaron Anderson, who at the time Nuss released the ball was shielded by a defender. Remember, you needed 5 yards. The game was over. He made a gutsy play, delivered, and LSU ended up winning. You take the good with the bad. In this situation, you're up 10 with just above 8 minutes to play in the third quarter. Nussmeier rolling left on 3rd and 2, which you could ask why are you throwing the ball on 3rd and 2, but it's what LSU does. And rolling left, throws back to the middle of the field, throws the interception, and just like that, the game changed. Offense had been so hard for A&M all night, and you made it easy. And one play later, they're in the end zone. Tigers would get the ball back, and they would answer. They put together a really nice drive at this point. And unfortunately, Xavier Thomas on 3rd and 7 had a drop, which would have made it a much more manageable field goal. But this was an instance where it wouldn't have even mattered because the snap went right off the holder's face because Peyton Todd wasn't ready for it. Brian Kelly chewed him up and down on the sideline. But it was just very obvious that this was a night where you had 2 missed field goals. You had an errant snap on a field goal. That's 9 points minimum you left out on the field. And your execution of your operation was very poor. You have to give Texas A&M credit. You have to give Texas A&M credit because they executed offensively with Marcel Reed in a way that they hadn't with Connor Wegman. So you give Mike Elko credit for making that decision to change quarterbacks, and you give them credit for executing. So too do you have to look at LSU and say, you blew it. You had opportunities to convert 3 field goals that netted you no points. That's 9 points. That completely changes the dynamics of the game. Maybe they never go to Marcel Reed because they don't have the luxury of running the ball at that point because they have to throw it. I mentioned the possession early in the game where you had goal to go at the 7 and you end up settling for a field goal. You missed opportunities to blow this game open early. You left the door open, and you credit Mike Elko and A&M because they stuck with it. They made a very critical change by inserting Marcel Reed. They made the most of it, and you just couldn't figure it out, which is massively disappointing. Now, LSU had a pulse because even after Texas A&M had scored 3 consecutive touchdowns and another Nussmeier interception mixed in there, the one in the flat, which they gave them the ball at year 26. They're up 28-23. I'm sorry, they're up 28-27, and you put together a really nice drive, which started with an Emory Jones false start. But you had a pulse because you went to Chris Hilton for 21 yards, Aaron Anderson down the middle for 33. All of a sudden, you're at their 3-yard line. They overturned Trey'Dez Green's touchdown. You push him in. You missed the 2-point conversion. It's 28-23. There's 9:57 to play in the ball game. There's plenty of time. It's a 1-score game. You've weathered the storm. 2 bad Nussmeier interceptions, and you're still right there. And on the first play, they go deep down the seam for 54 yards. 2 plays later, they were in the end zone, 35-23, and that was the ball game. Now, Nuss would throw one more atrocious interception over the middle where he just didn't see the end drop. He was going to dump one over the middle to Josh Williams. Didn't see the end drop into coverage and threw it right to him. So a night where Garrett Nussmeier threw for 250 yards in the first half and was absolutely abysmal in the second half. And yes, you give Texas A&M credit for the adjustments they made, but I can't help but look and say, if LSU takes advantage of the opportunities they had, you have a much bigger lead. Maybe Nuss doesn't feel the need to press the way he did or gets careless, and you end up winning that game. So there's 2 ways to look at it as you look forward for LSU right now. As bad as that final score looks, 38-23, you still outgained Texas A&M, 429 to 376. I mean, you outgained Texas A&M in this ballgame. But you ran for 24 yards. And when you needed to be able to control the line of scrimmage, you couldn't. And they did. And so they won. So you look big picture for LSU right now and what this means. I know it's never easy after a loss, and people always start to look macro big picture at the coach or the offensive coordinator or the quarterback or whatever. Listen, LSU is still a good team, a very good team. They're good enough that they went on the road in that environment and had a 2-score lead midway through the third quarter. A&M made a big pivot. It paid off. Big gamble. It paid off. Okay. So you got to regroup, because the reality is now you get an extra week to prepare, to heal. You lost Garrett Dellinger in this game. You lost CJ Daniels in this game. See if they can get healthy in time for the Alabama game a week from Saturday. And you got 4 games to go. If you manage to beat Bama, then you go to Florida. You're home against Vandy. You're home against Oklahoma. You have an opportunity to win all 4 of those games, 3 of the 4 at home. And if you do, you're 10-2 and 7-1 over in the SEC. Now, that may not get you into the SEC championship game. And we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out and how tiebreakers work and everything. But that may not be the worst scenario, because 10-2, 7-1 in the league with wins against Ole Miss and Alabama and, weird to say, but Vanderbilt, that might be enough to get you into the playoff. We'll see what tiebreakers happen. And if you end up in Atlanta, I'm not sure that's a great thing, because if you go 10-2, go to Atlanta and lose the SEC championship game, I'm not sure a 10-3 team gets in. And you could say, they wouldn't leave out the loser of the SEC championship game. And I would say to you, they did last year. People forget Georgia was undefeated. Somehow people have convinced themselves of this narrative about Georgia falling off. Georgia was undefeated last year, 12-0. They go to Atlanta, lose to Bama, because that's just what Georgia does. It's the only team they couldn't beat. And they got left out of the 14 playoff. And I get that was 4 and this is 12. But that was an undefeated Georgia that was the back-to-back national champions. That was the wire-to-wire number 1 team in the country. They lost the conference championship game to Alabama, got left out of a playoff? Don't tell me that a 2-loss LSU team that loses in Atlanta and goes to 10-3 would automatically be a shoo-in because they played in the SEC championship game. That ain't how that works. So it might be a scenario where you look at it a couple of ways. If you get to Atlanta, it's a great opportunity, because if you win, you get a bye. But if you get to Atlanta and lose and fall to 10-3, are you on the outside looking in? Those are the conversations the team does not need to have. They need to worry about getting healthy and beating Alabama. But we can have those conversations and will. It's one of the fun parts about an expanded playoff, is more teams can be in this conversation even longer. But for LSU, the path got muddied because they couldn't take care of business in the final 20, 23 minutes of that football game at Kyle Field. So LSU loses again at College Station. Haven't won there since 2016 when Ed Ogeron was the interim coach. His final game is interim, Ed. It's been a minute since LSU's won at Kyle Field. They'll have to wait a couple of years to see if they get another opportunity to do that. But they'll have to wait a couple of weeks before they get an opportunity of redemption when Alabama comes to Baton Rouge. And that's now a game like all the rest of the games LSU plays where you have no margin for error. You got to win out. You want to make the playoff, you got to win out. It starts a week from Saturday when Alabama comes to Tiger Stadium. Of course, we'll have it all covered all the way through. A couple of other quick tidbits for you. It was great to see Chris Hilton out there for the Tigers, got his first action. Some asked, did they press, get him the ball? No. I love that they took shots. It was the benefit of having a guy like that can stretch the field. You make a defense respect it. I thought Kyron Lacey was awesome with 106 yards receiving, some big third down catches. Aaron Anderson, 126. Of course, the 76-yarder was the really big one for Aaron Anderson. But in all, 9 different players caught a pass from Garrett Nussmeier. There was so much good in this game for the first 37 minutes of the ball game. But those final 23 or so, it unraveled on you. And it's unfortunate that it did. But Tigers will have to regroup, see if they can get back out there a week from Saturday against Alabama and get back on track with everything on the line. We'll be here talking about it on Locked on LSU. Hey, if you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you are on YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.